Ready?
Ready.
Cool. In this week's podcast on nature, we discuss
The NHS has planned to integrate nature, some cool studies about it, light exposure, phone addiction, evolutionary perception, nutrition, specifically ancestral diets, and green and blue spaces.
and there'll be an NHS PDF in the description for studies and research articles, as well as all our references. Fab.
Enjoy. Who doesn't like nature? You like nature, I like nature, the listeners like nature. Yeah, the reason why I chose nature, and I'll be fairly blunt with it, is pretty much because the NHS is going to start this programme called, as part of the social prescribing programme, which they're introducing as their was their 5-year plan from 2020, and they're finally getting around to doing some of the bullet points. And part of that is green prescribing, where they would take a support worker, social worker, would take you out and go to green spaces for 180 minutes a week.
180 minutes a week.
180 minutes a week. So it's
a lot.
double the amount that they prescribe for exercise for adults.
I was going to say, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So that says a lot in itself then, I guess, doesn't it?
The-
Is that it's double double activity, physical exercise or exercise, whatever you want to call it, yeah. So that's a lot.
It's a lot. For saying that, I mean, personally, the exercise is so little, and that's a mistake on its own, that exercise is only 60 to 90 minutes of exercise for an adult per week.
Per
It's
week,
shocking.
yeah.
Yeah. When you're a child, it's 180 a day.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah. That a child, requires loads, and then for some reason, as soon as you hit 18,
Yeah. Oh, you don't need to work out anymore.
it gets cut significantly, basically, yeah. I think that's crazy.
Yeah. And yet they've saying that this nature prescribing will not change for any age. So children will be prescribed the same amount of nature that an adult will. And then I was intrigued to know, okay, because I've worked within therapies that have been outdoors and done multiple different types of therapies that involve outdoor activities that aren't necessarily therapy. Like running, for example, I would class that as for me, that's a therapy for myself, and it's outdoors and whatnot. I've also done ecotherapy. I've done garden-based mindfulness. I've done outdoor peer groups and walking, talking therapy. They're mostly with the charity mind. And I've seen how they can be beneficial in some aspects and not very beneficial in others. And I thought it was interesting to know how the NHS wants to do this, just that blanket thing of, just go outside and it makes you feel better. And this will solve a lot of issues and take loads of money out of the NHS and pressure off the NHS rather. And they're putting a lot of weight and expectation on that. And I wanted to kind of discuss with you what your thoughts on it are, and also if it's warranted, if that amount of financial input to social prescribing, green social prescribing.
Well, how much financial input is necessary for something that's quite low on the economic scale anyway, to be fair? You'd think walking and talking or anything outdoors is pretty low money wise, isn't it? So
you would think that, but the NHS is very peculiar in that it doesn't want you to use public spaces for any of these kind of things. If you're doing it through the NHS, unless it's the social prescribing aspect aside, because that's a different facet in my mind. The NHS, how it's going to deliver those therapies, will be in acquired land, acquired garden spaces, acquired green spaces in totality. So they will go out. I'll give you an example. So Devon was one of 6 trusts that started running these green therapies and green social prescribing as trial runs. And Devon was the least amount of money spent, and it was 47 million on generating research for them, which was about a third of their budget.
Doing infrastructure as well. So all about playgrounds and stuff. Is that also a factor within this? It's parks, playgrounds, whether it's for the stupid exercise, swingy things that nobody goes on.
No, they're not even part of it.
All right, okay.
They're all council
They're all
run.
council based, yeah.
So it's not even, they're not doing community things. This is all therapy based.
Okay. I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money, and then
I think it's a waste of money.
Yeah, I do too.
Personally.
I mean,
I don't want to disregard anything.
why do you think it's a waste of money?
Just from the literature that we've seen, that we've looked at, is that it doesn't require much intervention at all. So I feel like psychoeducation, I kind of rattle on about this all the time, but I feel like implement some sort of low-cost psychoeducation and let people do their own thing, basically.
Yeah.
Why is all this funding necessary? 43 million, did you say?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of
In
money.
Devon, just Devon.
Yeah, and that's the least, because they have access to so much green
Yeah,
space.
because it's Devon already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So places like Derby,
it's
struggle
gonna
massively.
be a lot.
Yeah, and so I think psychoeducation again would just be a massive help. Podcast leaflets, PowerPoints, courses, self-help checklists, anything, and just let people do their own thing.
Which is why I think they've started to do this social prescribing aspect more so.
Why? Because it's less hands-on.
Yeah, because it's less, because you're not paying a psychologist to sit down with you and be like, yo, let's do a therapy session, but let's do it outdoors, and that's me charge the NHS 6 times more because I need to be trained on therapy and being outdoors, and I need to then buy another
That's
therapy
so
session.
unnecessary.
Yeah.
That's not the solution, is it at all?
But this social prescribing aspect is you're paying somebody pretty much minimum wage to facilitate taking somebody out and getting them outdoors for an hour, 2 hours a week.
And are they like, what's the patient risk there?
So
Because that's not necessary for everybody, is it?
No.
People with low-level disorders don't require a facilitator to handhold them in the park, is it?
Yeah.
So what proportion of people actually require that?
I'm not too sure. I know the diagnosis that you would need to receive a...
So is it like a medium risk, basically?
Yeah, I think pretty much if you're mild to moderate, you're not going to get it. And if you're higher, more severity, then you would receive a green social prescriber if you lived in those trusts that ran that exercise.
Yeah.
But I mean...
Well, I think that's good, and I think that's beneficial. I think what I was looking at is more the low-level stuff for more the general public, basically. People who don't have diagnosed disorders or just low-level stuff.
Yeah.
Is their ability and availability to get out and stuff, and that although it'd be nice to have funding for all of them, I think it's nice that they're allocating it to the more severe cases and stuff. And I think that's where the psychoeducation could go in for the general public, so they can sort of do their own shtick, basically.
I found a really interesting study was one that looked into how people's perception of green spaces changed in lockdown, and that it was like valued before COVID. Like access to green spaces and care for the environment was like, I think it was 7th on, they got a list of 10 like priorities in people's minds of what you think is going to be your priority in 10 years time. It was a huge study by King's College London, and they were like, okay, it was like 7th on the list, like 10% of people put it as in their top 2 things that they are going to prioritise is going outdoors and accessing nature and preserving nature. And then halfway through COVID, it's 73% of people put it as their top 1 of this study. I mean, like how that perception's changing, and is that because of exactly your point, so psychoeducation, and how did that then
I think it was
impact
also the scarcity, though.
Yeah.
Being isolated for so long, so it now became a bigger need. They didn't realise what they'd lost until it was gone, basically.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Because I thought that initially, when you decided to pick this topic, sort of naive to it. I'm like, oh, why does he want to talk about that? It's because it's sort of ever present, isn't it? It's
taken for granted.
Yeah, you don't really. I feel like it's ignored a lot. I think because it's just within our lives. It's not something we actively implement or stuff like that. It's more just a routine thing, and that not until I stepped back did I realise that it's probably more important than you'd realise. Yeah.
So, what access to nature do you go for? Like, do you? You said that you take it for granted. Is there anything conscious that you do?
Well, I was always in nature from like early on, basically. Right. My upbringing was always
countryside.
Like, every weekend we'd go to the Peak District, something like that.
It's beautiful.
It's pretty grateful for that. I don't know.
But now, not that much. I mean, that's when you were younger, I guess.
Yeah.
You're not the one making that decision.
So, yeah, exactly. So that was out of my control. It was just naturally an occurring thing. Yeah.
And because you lived outside in the countryside, it was just easily available. It's like something that you just do, isn't it? It's not where you have to put too much effort into going for a walk or going to the Peak District if you live by it.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'd just written it off initially, because it was just basically I was in a privileged position, so that it was always readily available and that it was always on my doorstep, and therefore I didn't know it was a necessity until I partially lost it coming to Derby, basically. Yeah. And then I realised it was more of I had to make a required effort, basically. So now once a week I'll commute to the Peak District or something and go for a big hike. So Thursday, tomorrow.
You're going on a little hike?
Yeah.
Check you out.
Z loves it.
Do you go on like a proper trail kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, we always do. Yeah, cool. Once a week, yeah. So we started off with the local National Trust, Kedleston Road, just going there. And then public transport's cheap. Now just commute to the Peak District now. Go to Bakewell or whatever.
Like work.
Yeah.
Stop at the little tea rooms, make a day of it. That sounds
lovely.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's my exposure, I guess. Yeah.
For me, it was more like I also took it for granted. Also had a childhood where I was pretty exposed to nature. I went on lots of walks and things like that. By the sea, like I could listen to the waves crashing, go for a walk in all the parks, lots of farms, etc., etc. And then kind of forgot about it after like year 11. Because you come back from school and you're outdoors probably most of the time. I was playing out and things, and then like work and things take over. Your evenings start to get lost. Your days start to get lost. You don't spend as much time outdoors. You forget about it. And then I started taking our dog Snowy for a walk in the morning. Like before I did anything, I would get up, get dressed, and take Snow for a walk in like trees and stuff. If you need a coffee, we'll just go.
He loves it now, doesn't he? I needed a sneeze, but it's actually gone. Okay, sorry, continue.
You need to look up and say bananas, is that the thing? Yeah? I swear that's the thing.
Tell about the bananas a bit. Looking up might help. Nice. Go on, sorry.
So
take Snow for a walk.
Yeah, take Snow for a walk. Routine. And I realised, whoa, this like really helps me feel grounded and set, ready for the day. Now, it might have been exercise and it might have been outdoors. I haven't really like processed that.
Yeah, I was gonna discuss that. Is that there's a lot of factors at play really. It's quite hard to pinpoint nature as the driving factor basically. There's so much to it.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
No, go on.
I remember one variable that they checked for, which I thought was really cool, is these people were on a walk, right, and they did the walk and they're exposed to all these beautiful trees, there's a shrubbery and everything going on, and then they did the walk again with earmuffs on silenced, so they couldn't hear like birds chirping and wind going through, and there was no difference.
To isolate a variable. Yeah.
There was no difference between them walking on a city street, and it was like a normal town high street, and them walking in this.
So that still had the same benefit?
As in, it had no benefit when you took the sound out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you took away the auditory stimulus, and there was no
benefit.
Okay, so that changes a lot then.
Yeah.
So you need all 5 senses activated then, basically.
In my head, I didn't know if that was like your brain's confused because there's no noise.
That's really weird then.
Yeah.
That throws a spanner in the works because you're still outside.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, so like walking or going on a walk with headphones in, if you listen to a podcast or anything, may have that same
You're not very
impact.
present with it, I
Exactly.
guess.
That the whole point of being exposed to nature is to be present, is to expose yourself to the beauty and
That's
mystery.
one thing I've removed from my life is earphones, AirPods, wireless headphones, anything like that. I feel like that's pretty detrimental. That is like some sort of cursed psyop, basically.
Why? You don't like it?
No. For a period when I was in college, I used to wear my earphones constantly, 24/7. I would constantly have wired earphones in.
Right.
Sometimes I wouldn't even have anything playing, but they'd be in constantly. So I'd be making dinner, sat in the living room watching TV, I'd have earphones in.
Wow.
I got to sleep with them in. I couldn't sleep unless I had something playing. I was like, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah.
And then I started to remove slowly and realised how tough it was. And then I realised how difficult normal tasks were.
Yeah.
I was like, I couldn't brush my teeth without having my phone in the bathroom or having YouTube on or something playing.
That's
Spotify
crazy.
or YouTube Shorts. Realised I just couldn't operate any normal
Addiction.
task without having this constant stimulus. And that I sort of had to become present in just routine tasks and stuff. It's like I could not do anything without having stimulus. And it's not even that I'm paying attention to it, it could be anything. And so I slowly started removing things. And like now I go to the gym without earphones. Been doing that for about 2 years now. And people think I'm mental that I can go to the gym without needing earphones.
I get what you were saying, because you enter that meditative state when you're in the gym, and it helps you to do that. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I can see the psychological benefit of that. I'm interested, like, from your tapering off, do you think it was an addiction, firstly? Or do you think it was like an avoidance technique?
Yes.
To which?
Yeah.
Or both?
I think it was both. I think initially it was an avoidance technique, and then it became an addiction. And not an addiction like, oh my god.
Still an addiction.
yeah, of course, yeah. You're not an atypical addiction, basically.
Yeah.
Is that I failed to function without it, and it's a little bit off the nature thing. But
I think there are a couple of things that I want to touch with that. I think I was talking about this the other day, actually, that I see so common that phones have start off as an avoidance technique, and now have become addiction.
And I think it's not noticed. You don't notice it. It doesn't become. It's not seen as an issue initially, and so it took me ages to figure it out. It was only like when I had them in 24/7. My screen time was basically like 18 hours a day or something, because I just had music on or YouTube on or whatever constantly. It's not that I was on my phone. I just had earphones in. It was only like until it was like the worst case scenario did I realise that, okay, this is actually bad. Yeah. Whereas like the occasional going on it or whatever, I wouldn't identify as it being harmful or as an avoidance thing.
Yeah. At what time do you think it's a problem? If you're looking at your screen time now and they're like, crap, it's X hours.
Right, when I know it's high.
Yeah.
If it's above 6 hours.
6 hours, that's quite low.
You think?
I think for like a general population.
That's 6 hours a day, isn't it?
But for our age, 6 hours on the phone, that's like way below mean, surely. I want to look at the stats of that, but
I should hope so. That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
My average for some time was about 8,
right.
which I knew was too high, basically. But I operate on my phone a lot anyway. I find it handy.
Yeah.
Like I've got Google Drive on there. I've got like all my shops and shit on there. I've got all my work on there. I've got emails on there and stuff. And so I could allocate at least 40% was actual like
valuable
work.
time.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There was some sort of effort that that had purpose. And then the rest I would sack off and say that was wasted or whatever. And so I've been trying to trim that down basically. And so like anything above 5-6 hours is like, that's an issue. You're on it a bit too much basically. Yeah.
And like I always think with like phones and things like that is that, again, I'm going to circle it back to kind of nature, in that like it's so removing you from what your brain has evolutionarily been processed to handle. Like if you think you're outside and you're on a walk or you're doing a physical task, your brain's not that stimulated really. Or it is, but it's stimulated on things that aren't like dopamine hitting. And like being on your phone just is constantly hitting that look.
And then your baseline moves, doesn't it? Though?
Yeah.
And
exactly. And then you're
that
addicted.
becomes an issue. Yeah, exactly. There's so many factors at play that make tech an issue, specifically, obviously, phones that you carry daily. And then I actually read this recently. I was talking to a partner on the bus about this on the way in. Is that having your phone on in your pocket reduces your testosterone significantly?
Yeah.
It's like, I've been having my phone in my pocket for about 8 years every day. It's
Me too.
what
That's
effect
crazy.
has that
I wonder
had?
how much is it?
It was a meta-analysis, so it wasn't one study. It was a meta-analysis, yeah.
Do you know how much
So
the
they-
reduction is? Like,
No, I'll have to get the figure, but it was significant. The like would be there. So yeah, it wasn't even just one paper; it was a meta-analysis, and they'd
crazy.
run the analytical test on the collection of papers, and it was significant. Scary beans.
There was an increase in testosterone for green exposure and exposure to fire. How crazy is that?
The fire one is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That is such an amazing, just
Beautiful
crazy
study.
evolutionary thing. I find that mad.
That males' fixation on fire, and yet it doesn't happen in women. I find that
Because we have
wild.
the innate fear of snakes, and like our,
That's why.
yeah,
It's fear of snakes.
everybody. No, what? Not the fire thing. What do you mean?
I thought you were like,
They're just evolutionary speaking. That's why.
that is a crazy theory.
No, just like the evolutionary, like the innate fear of snakes, and then like this like drawn to fire from like cave dwelling and stuff like that, and just I find that crazy.
It's so cool.
I find that mad, and the fact that that plays a part in today's society, and that you sort of have to draw back your your rat 9 to 5 life sort of thing, and realize, oh, at the end of the day, we are
Yeah.
mammalian species, basically.
Yeah. If you integrate aspects of what our species as a human did thousands of years ago, your life becomes better now.
Do you think? Are you interested in like ancestry stuff like that?
Massively. I find
Do you
it
think-
absolutely fascinating.
I know the whole nature, nurture, and stuff like that, but
No, more evolution. Like, I love evolutionary psychology. I think it's so cool.
I could talk about evolutionary psych for a while.
Let's do it.
What I was going to say on the evolutionary part is because I write off genetics as not something that holds me back, but then I look back and try tap into evolutionary things. And sort of like, even though I write off predetermined genetics, like too short, these genetic things that I can't help, however, I do look back and try and align myself with,
You're in a caveman.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that resonates with you at all.
Massively it does, yeah. I think...
Because it sounds kind of stupid.
Why is it stupid?
Because it's ages ago. Who says that?
No.
Obviously, the wiring is. You'd say the wiring is still there. There's a like bone deep sort of thing. But to what extent is that only a small effect size compared to other things?
I don't know. I think that
Do you
the
know what I mean?
process of nature over millions of years is smarter
remained-
than I am.
I was going to say that also through evolution is
Yeah.
that that's not been removed from our
Yeah.
genotype phenotype stuff. Is that
Exactly.
that's still a necessity. At no point did the human body remove that, like the appendix
Yeah.
stuff.
There's not many examples where nature has something within us that is negative for us, other than now our cognition's starting to become an issue, and the fact that our prefrontal cortex can process all this thing and do thought, but also try its hardest not to let us think at the same time, it causes problems. Like, realistically, our body is so well adapted that you would be silly not to take advantage of those adaptations. And I understand the mechanisms that can improve your life. Like, I very frequently sit in front of my fire at home and read a book, and it is so chilled out. It's unbelievable. It's lovely.
Is the the fire? Does that emit red light? Is that the correct wavelength?
I have no idea.
Now how red light therapy has become a bit of a brow, like a mega health brow bow tied
don't know anything about
optimization
it.
strategy. No,
I
do
know
you know
about
like
light
saunas
therapy.
where they have like red light and stuff, and
Yeah.
red light therapy. Apparently, it's good for your skin and stuff. And I just wondered whether fire also had the same wavelength.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to
Well,
check
we'll
that.
have to put a study up here or there.
Yep, fantastic. It'll be somewhere, yeah, on weather. That might be right, you know.
That would make sense. I saw
because
it as
candlelight
as a
isn't
same.
blue light, yeah. So that's something that I actually have been doing. It's a little bit disconnected, but the
I wonder if that. So
at
if that
night
has the
term,
thing.
I turn all big lights off. And when I say night time, I don't mean like 8 o'clock. I mean like 5 p.m. I mean like before I've had dinner, all the main lights go off, all the little lamps are dimmed, and like I put candles on everywhere in the bathroom and etc. A bit of a safety issue, but well, I can't see. Everywhere's dark now, and there's just fire everywhere.
Dotted around the room.
Creating my own hazard. No, so I turn all blue light off and basically candlelit from 5 o'clock onwards, and the light isn't blue light. So, and that is mental.
Okay.
I feel crazy doing that. I feel so dystopian and so drawn out from doing something that is so natural and would have been so normal. Is that it's gone dark. Any sort of magical, bright, luminous LED is not normal. That's not typical.
Yeah. And you don't have to go as far as
Yeah,
blowing
it
out
is
or
extreme,
having
yeah.
candles out. You can use like yellow lighting or soft
You can put
light.
dimmers. Yeah. You can literally use.
Just have one of the things where you can turn it down a little bit.
Or you can put like a screen on it.
Yeah.
You could.
Night mode on your computer like this.
Yeah, software called Flux.io.
Yep. Yeah. What, that measures your light exposure.
You can get it on your MacBook, and it just turns. It goes by the daylight on your computer.
Yeah.
So as it turns like 1 o'clock, it just slowly goes orange and orange and orange and orange until it's nighttime, and then it's completely like negated of blue light.
Can you guess how much, on average, a male? I don't know why I know it as male, but a male in the UK has exposure to light, natural sunlight.
Natural sunlight.
Yeah.
What are you measuring this in? What quantity would you like?
I'm doing
Hours.
time.
Time, yeah.
It's in minutes that I know it.
It's in minutes. That's scary. I'd presume
Per day.
6 hours. So we're going to say 600 minutes.
On average, the exposure to light, natural daylight, is 90 minutes.
90, an hour and a half.
An hour and a half. And it goes from, like, and it's like, it's a very skewed thing, like graph. It goes from, like...
because it's a mean average. So
Yeah.
is there some people that get loads, but there's a few people that get none? Is that
There's
why it's
loads of
skewed?
people that get none,
Ah.
and some that get loads,
Yeah.
like 9 hours a day.
Okay.
It goes from it goes from like, they did it over 2 weeks, and it was like 200,000 people, all males. No, yeah, and and they measured it, and crazy. I find that absolutely crazy that the average was 90 minutes, and like that difference in light exposure is going to affect so many different biological clocks in your like day-to-day living. Like, you're not going to get is it vitamin D?
Yep. I know we've talked about basics as well. And
Yeah.
like we're coming back to basics, but that is like fundamental. That's before basics. That to me is integral.
But it's
And that's
getting
why we
outdoors.
write it off, is because it's so integral. Don't even think about it. Like, going to bed on time, eating well, going to the gym 3 days a week or whatever, are these basic things that I implement. At no point does it cross my mind initially, fundamentally, was like, get outside, have some sunlight, and like, it's almost like an old wives' tale of like, you need to get outside. Ooh, you're depressed. Ooh, get some
Go out.
sun. Yeah,
Go
get
play
outside.
outside with your friends.
Exactly, yeah, it's summer. It's like, oh, open the curtain, get outside.
But you do. I mean,
Feeling down, up, get outside, you feel loads better. It's like, pff, shut up.
It's
And then it's like, oh my God, no, this is,
shake you.
there's a truth in this. And they're like, I know it's completely, like, broadened over, and like, yeah, I get it. There's no, your mum or your dad telling you to get outside. You just write it off as nothing. At the end of the day, integrally, it's true.
Yeah,
It massively
and
helps.
it's very significant. And I think that it's what's the word that I'm thinking? compounded by... I've forgotten what I was talking about now. Oh yeah, okay. It's compounded by the fact that when you have a problem with your mental health, you tend to isolate, and that is often indoors. And so that you're exposed to nature and exposed to light, and everything else decreases, which then compounds the problem.
It's crazy. Yeah. It truly is a fundamental, isn't it? Yeah. It's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's fucking at the top. It's massive, and it's so neglected. I think something that I was going to mention as well about the light thing in my routine now is as soon as I wake up, I'm like staring out the window. First thing now, initially I would never do this. I just get up and do my usual morning routine. But now I will get up and I will understand the quality of natural light is that I will look outside. Or if I feel sleepy or lethargic, I will go as close to the window as possible, basically. Yeah, literally. Next to my bed where there's a window, I will literally go up to the window and press my face against the glass. And
it works.
It wakes you up. I feel awful, lethargic and sleeping. I'm like, oh God, I want to get back in bed. And naturally I'll fall back asleep because it's nice and warm and cozy. And instead I'll look outside and it's almost as if my brain is just slowly turning on and the wires start moving and stuff. And get out of bed, no problem.
Do you sleep with your blinds up or whatever, your curtains drawn?
I currently live in the city, and so I have to have the blinds closed. But when I'm at home, I don't have anything at all. I have everything open. So I go to sleep when it's dark, and then I naturally wake with the sunlight that comes in. Yeah.
I wake with the sunlight, and I find it 100%. Hugely beneficial.
It's massive. Yeah.
And it's so nice because the sunlight's also coinciding with the songbirds, and it's beautiful. And I've got a couple of trees
with the birds and stuff. Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Unfortunately, I can't do that at the moment, but we're back to it at some point.
People staring at you through your window in your flat.
And just being in the city generally,
Yeah, and it's not particularly nice view, I guess. I've got trees to look out onto.
And very loud and lots of light pollution. So there's street lights that are going to be on way past my bedtime. So.
Okay, so my next thing that is fairly to do with that is their way of doing city planning to incorporate nature, and I find it fairly cool in that their thing is let's plant trees is their thing. Let's encourage people to involve with nature, and the way they're going to do that is by planting X amount of trees, not spaces particularly, or not looking after the trees, ensuring that they grow. They're just going to plant them, kind of hope, which is very flawed and a waste of money. And also there isn't that much literature out there that's saying that just being by a tree is particularly beneficial unless you're doing a mindfulness exercise.
So what would you suggest then instead of trees?
I would suggest, the most common public access place is a park that people access nature.
But do you not think trees increase biodiversity whereas parks don't? I don't see parks as pretty beneficial.
Depends on your park.
Yes. I'd see more of a nature reserve as something that would be fantastic. So when I think of park, I think of tarmac skate park, slides and swing set and stuff.
Is that because that's where you
fence and flat green grass? Whereas with the tree aspect, to me that makes sense because you're increasing biodiversity, you're increasing personal privacy because they also help block out noise pollution from the roads and stuff. So when they have them all lined across the roads, that helps block out loads of noise pollution. So if you live on the side of the road, you can't hear it. You can also now see a tree instead of loads of traffic going by.
True.
To me, that makes sense, and they're pretty cheap and they help. That's my advocate for trees, I guess.
Okay, but I understand that. I think my perception of it is flawed in that, I've seen how they've delivered that, and it's not very good. The NHS, in partnership with some government body, hasn't been very successful. It's a 30% success rate for every tree they plant.
I think that should be more of a council job than I don't know why they're messing about with that.
It's part of their nature.
That doesn't need to be their priority.
It's like a health
They can let the council increase the greenery.
Yeah, so also water. How much, in a city, how much access do you have for running water? No.
What do you mean by consumption or weight?
A stream, a fountain.
Oh, you mean natural bodies?
Yeah, or a lake, a pond, that kind of thing. Nothing, right? There might be an occasional fountain, one fountain in the middle of a town centre, but even that, not really. A lot of the time.
Is it the noise and the flowing of it? Is that why fountains? I'm just trying to think. Origins of fountains, other than them looking pretty, is that like they're this focal point in large houses and stuff and interesting places. Sorry,
Do we get kicked out? Do you look in?
No, it's alright. You're just getting in the lift. So origins. I was just thinking about fountains. Everywhere you go, that's like regal or nice. There's a fountain. Central piece of parks, fountains. What is this massive thing about fountains? And I was thinking like. The noise that it creates is this flow. It's emanating a river, isn't it, basically? And that where villages and tribes formate is at the bottom of rivers and stuff, is that you follow the stream down, and that's where a civilization will be. And that's kind of what the fountain is this focal point of a community, basically. Yeah. And that the noise and this sort of faux natural aspect to it. I just thought that was interesting.
I've always kind of thought as fountains as being like a example of opulence, and like historically water was a very valuable asset or
and the fact
commodity.
That they could just have it free flowing constantly is an opulence thing.
Yeah. But like to have a fountain imagine if there was a fountain at Kedleston, or that little pond that's out the front of our university. I went and sat there while I was waiting for a lift.
So did I. Yeah, it's rather nice, and there's fish in it and stuff. Yeah.
It was great. I mean, if that was just grass, I'm not getting as much benefit psychologically as if it was just...
I like the study that was mentioned about blue being better than green.
What's that study? Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so there are a couple. Firstly, blue. When I say blue, I mean environments that are surrounded by water.
Does this include the sky?
No.
Okay.
No, it's...
Bodies of water.
Bodies of water. It can be running water, still water, anything like that, or the sea. So a couple of examples are, there was a study that compared people who lived inland to closest to the sea. People who lived closer to the sea had better psychological well-being, and their mortality increased. Is it increased? They lived longer.
Yeah. So all-cause mortality was significant, basically.
Yeah.
So it increased massively, basically. Yeah. So the closer you were to bodies of water, specifically the ocean, obviously because it's massive, was significant, basically.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, although green is obviously really beneficial, blue was what, 2 times? Was it twofold or threefold? It was something ridiculous, wasn't it? Was that even though green is significant and has a massive aspect and plays a massive part, as we've already just discussed about nature being, was that blue topped it, basically.
There's also this really cool running study that when I was running a lot, I used and started to implement. In that they tracked people who were running. They did eye tracking, and they did this neuroimaging of their prefrontal cortex
during the run.
Wow. Yeah.
So had some kit on doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was like 3 tabs or something like that that were measuring electric waves, and I don't know how they did the eye tracking. I guess they just wore some goggles that are fancy.
Yeah, you can have glasses now that do eye tracking. Yeah,
cool.
Pretty. Yeah. Tech's going places.
And they found that people who fixated on and then they got them to run in different environments: a city environment, a green environment, and a blue environment. In this example, it was alongside a stream for, I think it was like 2K, and they found that for the baseline of in the city, their prefrontal cortex was very active and their eye tracking was scattered. They would focus on different little things as they would run, and one would then trigger the other, and so on, which meant their anxiety was increased. They didn't get any of the psychological benefits from running. Well, they did, but it wasn't as much. They also found that they couldn't regulate their cardiovascular mechanisms as easily, and that they had an increase in what's it called, the acid that produces an acid. that's produced in your muscles as a waste from energy.
Lactic acid.
Lactic acid.
That builds up.
Yeah, there's an increase in lactic acid that built up, which is crazy.
From
if they compared, they took.
So what caused the build-up? Sorry, what caused the build-up of lactic acid?
When they compare the lactic acid build-up of the city runner to the blue runner and the green runner, they had more lactic acid
in the city group.
In the city group, and this went step down from green to blue. So blue had the least amount of prefrontal cortex activity.
Have to look at swimming then, shan't we?
Yeah, that would be great. And
because
then,
that's immersion, isn't it? That's as close as you can get to blue, isn't it? Yeah. So that might be interesting.
And then maybe compare swimming to open water swimming.
That's great. Yep. Sorry, just loads of thoughts running through my head about that aspect. It's sort of like the difference between swimming in a swimming pool, chlorinated water, compared to rivers, lakes, reservoirs, even reservoirs that are man-made, these man-made bodies of water, even they're more like invigorating and thrilling and just eye-opening when in them than a chlorinated pool.
So much more. I mean, half of that will be to do with temperature, I imagine, right?
Because it's freezing cold.
Yeah, especially in England. But like, it is so much more enjoyable.
And again, that's just the processed, unprocessed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of the swimming pool. So in this environment, it's heated, it's chlorinated, it's chemically clean.
Yeah.
And then you've got reservoirs, lakes, ponds, rivers, whatever. Yeah.
It activates those evolutionary processes that our brain associates with being calm and being in a safe place, that is associated with food and security. All those things. It's calm. But they also I started running by this like lake in Swadlincote near where I live, and I felt better running. I felt like I recovered quicker after the running, and like psychologically I found that I wasn't angry when I was running, which was crazy because I always used anger as a motivation for me. I was like, if you stop running now, you're an idiot.
Whereas you're actually just like enjoying it.
Yeah.
Because they didn't require that sort of motivation.
Exactly. I actually enjoyed running, and I did it for the pleasure of it rather than training.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So just implementing it in a way that maybe you already do in your life, like going for a run. If you go for a run now, maybe find a track that's in a forest, if that's safe to do, or by a lake, or by a stream, by a river.
Close to bodies of water. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't take a lot of effort to try and integrate nature into your life, particularly.
Local park, a lot of them will integrate bodies of water, won't they?
Yeah.
There's a river going through them, stream, or even a man-made fountain or something.
See, that's what I imagine as a park, what we were saying earlier. Like, I imagine Markeaton Park as park, and that little one on the end of your estate.
Yeah.
Where it's got that little...
It's got the swinging basket, and the basket's not there because it's broken too many times. It's not been replaced. Yeah. So when you say park, there is level. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When you say park, there are levels to this, aren't there?
Yeah. But even that little one is probably better. With that little bit of grass, it's probably better. Yeah.
What about them exercise parks with the silly little swings and the, you know what I'm on about?
Yeah. I mean, there is lots of studies that suggest that exercising in nature is the true benefit of nature.
Okay.
Like, you only really access the psychological aspects unless you're practicing mindfulness.
So outside exertion.
Yeah.
What, more beneficial than just regular exertion indoors?
Yeah. If you were to do all of your gym activities outdoors, there are studies that suggest that you could lift heavier.
So that's motivating to get an outside gym.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Like, to the factor of you could lift heavier.
That's interesting because I know obviously private gyms may have better access to stuff like that, but places like Gold's Gym, so obviously the routine brand known for bodybuilders and stuff,
right.
A lot of their gyms are outside.
Might be a reason.
Obviously that could be completely coincidence, but Gold's Gym, all over the world, all in America, known bodybuilder gym, and most of their places are outside.
So
You've got like Miami Beach and stuff like that, where they have gyms on the beach. and they're all shredded guys.
And it's cool as hell. Like, and I personally enjoy working out outdoors. I mean, I find it frustrating that a lot of the gyms in the UK focus on being like dark and
yeah, they
cool
take a masculine
lighting.
element to it, don't they? And that's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that they make them dark and dingy.
It feels sleepy. I feel tired in the gym.
Turn up to the gym and there's all dim lighting. Yeah, it's not.
And it's all moody. Ooh, mysterious. But it's actually pretty whack.
The local gym that I go to has full length glass windows. Has full length glass windows from like floor to ceiling. It's all glass. There's no artificial light that's on either. It's all natural light.
So do you prefer going to the gym there than at home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy enough. Obviously, whatever, call it a coincidence, but full length glass windows, no artificial light to speak of, whereas my one at home is rather dingy and dark, as you were describing. Don't enjoy it as much.
No.
And typically I go in the evening when the lights are on.
Yeah.
Whereas in the one that I go to here, I go in the day, in the morning, it's nice and bright, and then usually I walk there and back as well. And my commute is...
God, you're getting in that 180 minutes a day.
Yeah, exactly. Get my 10,000 steps and all that business.
Okay. I mean, so I feel like getting 180 minutes a day for a lot of people is actually quite a lot. It's going to be difficult.
Exercise-wise or nature-wise?
Nature-wise, I suppose it's nature. I think it's going to be difficult unless society kind of takes a shift into including nature into its like daily routines. Like example, bigger windows, exposure to nature.
I think how they've deconstructed offices, the more modern office is now like casual clothing, rock up when you want sort of thing. There's no cubicles anymore. There's a step forward, but I think what these Googles, sort of the FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, these big six, big fives, need to start to integrate nature into an office plan, basically.
Put a tree up in the corner.
Anything, whether they make an environment or an office space that's outside, or at least partially outside, whether it be like a balcony sort of setup, cool. Like a part, or like a glass sliding door.
Yeah, that you could open up on a nice day, kind of thing, like the breeze in.
That when the weather's okay, although all these are like based in San Francisco and stuff, when the weather's decent, have it open plan.
There's also lots of studies out there that say like it doesn't have to be nature. It could be like a sound of nature or a mural of trees or bushes or pictures of like a jungle.
A restaurant I went to recently has bird noises playing in the bathrooms when you run the faucet.
That's so cool.
So when you turn the taps on or flush the toilet, it makes bird noises.
Bird noises tweeting. Are one of the main drivers, like from the studies that I've read anyway, it's a huge driver for reducing cortisol, because like we associate bird tweetings with safety, because evolutionary speaking, this is probably a bit of a jump, but evolutionary speaking, that when birds were tweeting, they would fly away in danger, and so an early warning sign that there was a predator around was that the birds would stop tweeting. And so we associate the birds tweeting with safety.
And birds tweeting is also mating calls as well, so during fear that would make sense.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't occur. Attention is deviated, basically. That also goes down to evolutionary perception and stuff, is that perception is built up on only things that deviate from what we're used to, basically. And so the bird stopping tweeting is something that deviates from our normal perception. Is that in time we'd have always heard the birds tweeting, because that would have been a normal thing.
So do you think it would be better if we put birds tweeting in the background of our podcast?
Potentially. We could open with it or close with it. Yeah.
You wouldn't have it on all the time. Or would it then be distracting? As you just said, it wouldn't be distracting, right?
So that's the thing with the evolutionary perception thing, is that sort of we're on autopilot always, and we only deviate from autopilot when something occurs that's stark. Yeah. So that's why initially researchers thought that aggression and fear was what deviated perception, and that's why you see like eye tracking studies and stuff, everyone looks at fear for perception, but it doesn't necessarily need to be fear. Is that it can just be novel things. So a good example is when you're playing the piano, if you can play the piano, you do a set piece, you know the set piece, you revise the set piece, and at some point you go into autopilot. You're not thinking about playing each individual key, you're simply playing that set. Only when you get it wrong do you notice. You sort of break out of this trance and go, oh, it's gone wrong. And that's not fear.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It's a novel thing. It's something that's gone wrong. And that's sort of the evolutionary perception, is that we're sort of on this autopilot unless something deviates or strikes our attention. And that
Because our brain's trying to
necessarily
streamline everything.
doesn't necessarily need to be fear. And that's what the sort of evolutionary perception is that we're kind of going through the motions, and that we only have developed perception for things that deviate from normal life. So I think something you might resonate with is if you're driving a commute that you usually do, you don't think about that commute. You're not thinking where I turn left or where I turn right or anything like that, or when to slow down, when to speed up. Your general commute is on autopilot. You're not thinking about that.
And then you get home and you're like, God, how the hell did I get here?
Yep, and that's a bit scary.
Yeah.
Because then you realise and go, oh, was I actually in control? And you were. It was that's perception, is that you were in your autopilot and you were just going about this thing that you normally did. And then your fear, your actual evolutionary perception will clock in.
Yeah.
If a guy pulls out
Change
on you.
lanes.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Something occurs that deviates from the normal. The road's closed. You've got to take a different route, and then all of a sudden you're turned on. You know every motion. You can now feel the wheel indicating you're looking about.
That is
it's
really
like,
cool.
I'm now tuned in, and that's sort of an evolutionary thing that we don't look at.
Yeah, but it's important to maybe break out of that. What did you call it again? The autopilot.
Yeah.
Strategies to break out of that and try and be present in moments is when that's a catalyst in my mind to improving quality of life. Like, yeah, it's all well and good being an autopilot for your well in life, and you might like get by and be content and things, but to like activate those higher intensity emotions, you need to be present, in my opinion.
And if you think it's rubbish, there's also a little test that you can do for the evolutionary perception thing, is that if you are in the city centre or on a busy high street or anything, is that when you get to the street corner, look up into the sky for as long as you can, and you'll soon realise that people who walk by you will also begin to look up for no reason whatsoever, because they're interested in what you're pointing at, basically. Is that you're a bit like a dog.
I love the idea of imagining you just in a busy high street going, "Oi, made you look."
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Absolutely nothing there. Just standing. Yeah. And that's also why we have pupils. Right. That's why, is it gorillas? I can't remember where the evolutionary food chain thing cuts off, but a certain species doesn't have pupils, and that's why they went extinct, and that's why we do. Is that you know where we're looking, you know what we're looking at, we know where we're pointing basically with our pupils.
That is so cool.
And so the whole high street gag is that when you look up, people are like, oh, there must be something there because his normal perception has deviated. There must be something. He's pointing up. Why is he looking up? I know he's looking up. His pupils are looking up. There's got to be something up there. And so everybody.
Yeah, a perfect example. Like when you looked over there to see there's somebody at the door, I instantly went, oh, and broke and whatever I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that it was just an evolutionary perception taking place, and that plays
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So what are you going to tell me about evolutionary food and that?
Wonderful. Something I read recently, which isn't backed up by any evidence, I'd like to say there is nothing.
Great.
This is simply something I've stumbled across recently and would just like to query, basically. Mm-hmm. I'm not suggesting that you have an answer, I'm just looking for an opinion,
Always
basically.
got an answer.
Wonderful. So yeah, again, to preface this, there's no research that I've come across. This is simply something that came across. Mm-hmm.
So now you've covered your back, let's hear it.
Yeah, exactly. So, the thing that I came across was eating foods that were specifically from your ancestry's region.
Right. Okay.
Region-based. So this guy, who I was having a chat with, was like, I don't eat mangoes because I'm not from the equator. And that wouldn't be beneficial for my physiology. Is that there's no point me eating mangoes because my ancestral heritage is like northern hemisphere. And so I eat berries, river caught fish, etc., etc. This is obviously really extreme, but I thought it was a fantastic
When did you meet this guy?
idea. This was a Twitter interaction.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Cool.
A bit of a friend. Yeah. So that was his idea basically, is that he was an advocate for that. He wasn't trying to get people, he wasn't trying to brainwash people, he wasn't like no carnivore alias and all these Liver King types or anything. He simply thought, I have the ability to. I'm in a rather I've some money, I'm in a set position, let's like draw back. I have the feasibility to. Let's draw back and look at like my evolutionary standpoint basically. And he was like, look, all my family from the northern hemisphere, I'm just gonna eat everything that would have been derived from that period. Is that whatever could be grown in the northern hemisphere I shall eat. So like greenhouse things didn't count. So if you're growing kiwis in a greenhouse in Sweden, he wouldn't eat them
Unless your ancestor did it.
because that's cheating. So the only things that could be grown, it was
naturally
the local aspect, sort of the paleo thing, is that you would have unprocessed things, but he just took it to a further extent. Is the whole paleo thing is you have unprocessed food. It's like, okay, you're eating avocado. You would have never ever had an avocado. Avocados are all shipped from like New Zealand and California in these hot climates. You'd have never ever, your physiology, your whole makeup would have never been exposed to an avocado, and now you're having one every day for breakfast.
Yeah,
Is that so crazy?
I don't think it's crazy in concept. I think it's crazy in effect. I think it's crazy to expect too big of a...
The ability
crazy,
to do that is actually a lot more difficult than you'd believe. And I find that crazy in itself. Is that I've proposed this point to a few other people and they go, yeah, but that's not feasible. I don't have the money to do that. I can't pay for...
Yeah.
And yet, when you look at it, that's kind of the bare minimum. It's outrageous that it's not cost effective to buy local food.
Yeah.
It's great. You're saying you can't eat things from where you live.
Depends where you live, probably.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, if you live in quite a arable place, then you're chilling. But like in England, you'd probably be alright. But if you live in, I don't know, where it's not very arable, is Sweden very arable or things like that, or Antarctica, you might struggle. But like, I mean, there is literature out there. I don't know too much, but like, on that your gut microbiome has different consistencies if you live in different areas.
That's sort of his point, and also about I don't want to go into this too much because it's a bit mumbo jumbo. Sort of like photosynthesis, and about the exposure of light to certain food that's been reared. So he talks about mangoes having loads more photosynthesis acquired into it.
What does that mean? Make any difference?
Because it's close to the equator.
Yeah.
And he's not. Sort of the microbiome thing.
So
is that his physiology isn't cultured towards hot climates.
Right.
So it'd be like the equivalent of a white man going to an Arabic country and getting severely sunburnt is that his physiology is not climatized to it. He can go there. There's an aeroplane that'll take him, but he doesn't function so well because he needs to wear sun cream because he's just going to get burnt to a crisp and he will die because he'll get skin cancer.
Yeah, but you're not going to burn from eating a mango.
No, but that's not his point. Is that he's that analogy, but for food. Yeah. Is that it's not? He doesn't see it. It's not right. He would have. His physiology isn't going to process this as well as he would for regional things. Yeah. In his mind.
I can understand that process of your microbiome. I don't really get the photosynthesis bit, but that might be me not understanding it. I think there might be merit to it, but I also think that if it's feasible, like monetarily wise, and you can access it, but also there's quite a lot of things where you don't have access to the vitamins and minerals from your local area that you need to have a mixed and varied diet. I imagine he's probably done tons of research and found every single vitamin and mineral that you need. But I mean, that would take tons of planning if I was going to do it. I don't know if I'd be able to find it all. Or at least the foods that I like, because I'm lazy and I have food tendencies. But I mean,
there's an accessibility issue and stuff. I just thought it was a nice extreme case that taps into this evolutionary thing. Is that we've sort of drawn it back to eat locally, eat unprocessed things, this sort of natural thing. But like we've never considered that access to certain things wouldn't have ever been available. We've never considered that a kiwi, mangoes, etc., avocados, that we write this off as, that's fine, of course it is, it's natural, but to what extent is it not natural at all?
So do you think that
is that not a processing thing?
Yeah.
Is what he was getting at, basically. It's like, oh, you write off Warburton's bread or whatever, whatever processed food. And it's like, oh, but you're still eating mangoes or still eating avocado. Although these are beneficial, and we know them to have loads of nutrients, and that like kiwis are basically a superfood. They've got almost every vitamin in them. They're fantastic. But it's like, to what extent is that processed? Because you would have never had access to that within your biome, within the region.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head there, is in processed food. Might be a bigger culprit than what's...
almonds.
Are they good for you? Bad for you?
Well, the way that they're processed, don't they require bees? They have a massive pollination thing.
Really?
Is that when almonds are made? That's why vegans aren't really allowed almonds to an extent.
Yeah, I've noticed the bee problems is in that they like ship bees, massive hives around. They have to get to pollinate. They have to import
in order to pollinate. And to what extent is that just not a level of processing that we don't look at, basically? And like GMO. GMO crops, like apples in all supermarkets now don't have seeds in them. It's a GMO crop.
Really?
Go to Lidl, buy an apple, it doesn't have seeds in it.
You're joking. That's crazy.
GMO adapted.
What Tesco's do.
It's like
Tesco's definitely have. I'm never buying apples from Lidl if it's got no seeds in. Don't
yep, the ones I purchased from Lidl. These aren't like special organic magic apples. These are regular apples. Don't have seeds in. I didn't ask for that. That's providing no benefit, really. I'm not getting more apple from it either. How big's the seed?
They're tiny,
What? Why was that necessary?
And they've also got cyanide in.
The seeds do. Naturally occurring. Nobody eats the seeds anyway.
Yeah. 'Cause they've got
you
cyanide
don't process the seeds either.
Die.
That's the whole point of seeds, is that you pass it along. That's the whole point. That's how things... Nope. Don't get digested.
No way.
Of course it doesn't. That's
but
how
surely
seeds are
all
passed
the
along.
nutrients and things are taken, stripped from it.
Seeds?
Yeah, if you chew a seed.
Potentially, I don't know. I don't want to go into that sort of depth. But all I know is that that's the whole point of seeds, is that you ingest it and then it comes out the other end.
I've got another flaw in his argument.
Go on.
So, take eggs currently as an example.
Yep.
What do? You're eating locally. You've got, let's say you're a cool guy and you've got loads of chickens and you've got loads of vegetable patches and got pigs and whatever. All your chickens die from bird flu. Oh no. I now haven't got that source of protein, that source of cholesterol, all the other good things, and a big aspect of your diet's gone. Like, that would be a huge problem if you lived and ate that way. Or it's a harsh winter and
but
all
then
your crops
you just
die.
go get chicken from somewhere else. What do you mean?
All of them have died.
Okay.
Flawed argument, I know. But my point is that good, relying on loads of variabilities, I don't think that may... I think there are so many ways to improve your life, improve your
this is a very
nutrition.
Case,
yes. That
there's so many other factors you could implement in your life that would be more beneficial. Yes.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting.
Okay. Do you want to talk about carnivore diet real quick?
Yeah, can do.
So what do you think about carnivore diet?
It's something I'd like to implement in my life. I find it rather difficult to do, though, which it shouldn't be. Again, as we've just discussed, who'd have thought that wanting to eat things that were grown near you and locally would be such an expensive route, and that realistically, in my time frame as a uni student, I can't afford to go carnivore. Buying, I think, carnivore's mainly red meat, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're not a fan of chicken either.
Yeah.
It's mainly red meat, yeah. buying steak is not feasible for me at this moment in time. I do try, and again, but I don't want to be too restrictive. I do prioritise salt. If I can get red meat and it's reduced, yep, I'm getting it. Like I buy like stewing meat, red meat, because that's cheap stuff.
They're cheap, yeah.
Yep, because I can't afford steaks. So
I get mincemeat loads because you can get that fairly cheap at
yeah,
sometimes.
mincemeat again. Yeah. Yep. Something that I'd like to put towards you, which I don't know whether you might have considered this already. What are you making with your mincemeat?
I'm
chilies and stuff, or like
I'm
are you making
literally just doing
burgers?
making chili con carne without the carne, if that's the.
Do you go to a butcher or do you get it from a supermarket?
I just get it from the supermarket.
If you buy some liver,
Yeah, I've had liver in a lot of my dishes. I'm not very good at cooking it. Is the problem. It always tastes a bit gross.
Yeah. Because it tastes disgusting, you can allocate a bit into your mince. Chop it finely. I think that's where I was going wrong. I had it like. Rather than cooking liver as you normally would, just pan frying it in some butter or whatever, and it tastes grim or whatever. You don't like the taste. Literally mince it like you would your beef, and put like 80-20 ratio.
Right.
So I have like beef burgers, but they've got a little bit of liver in them, and so now I've like 10x the nutrients of these burgers now. It's not just 8% fat beef mince anymore. It's got a little bit of liver in it.
So can you still taste it in it?
No.
Really?
That's the point. Yeah, is that you put just enough in, so it's beneficial, but obviously but little enough so that you're not overwhelmed with this horrible taste of liver. So you can stick it in your chili and stuff.
Beautiful.
It's up to your preference though. So you might be able to fit loads more in. You might be able to put loads of liver in. You're not bothered by it.
I was quite sensitive to it. I'm not gonna lie. I'd chop it up pretty small and I'd still taste it.
I was gonna say if you can go to a butcher, the butcher will also integrate it for you. If you went to a butcher, so if you got mincemeat from a butcher, they would put. You'd be like, oh, can you chuck some liver in? I don't know actually, but you can ask them, and they would mince up some liver for you and mix it in, so it's completely like congealed, so it's not separated at all, so it's completely combined. I think that's a nice integration.
Thank you.
Something I want to give a try is freeze drying it and taking it as capsules. Yeah.
God, you're so fancy. Ooh, look at me with my liver capsules. You're just going to buy them from Liver King, aren't you?
No.
Like, look at these ones I made.
Not
you don't want to
a
admit
chance. No way. Liver is dirt cheap.
Yeah, it's really cheap. Nobody wants it. Yeah.
I can get about 3 pieces of liver from M&S for about £1.98. It's fantastic.
But it's so good for you.
It's the cheapest and most like nutrient dense thing ever. I just hate the fucking taste. It's disgusting.
Not very nice to eat.
It's horrible. Yeah.
But these are the things that you do if you want to push yourself. If you want to be like, okay, I've read this study and it's got so X amount of thing, it's going to take some integration into your life. It's going to take some effort.
Yep, and maybe I'll build a taste for it. Because I'm just not used to it. So it's a preference thing.
You're going off autopilot. You're like, oh, this is different.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just more sensorily engaged then with it. Because I'm just aware of it.
I was like that with lettuce at first.
Lettuce.
Yeah, seriously, I didn't like the taste of lettuce, and it doesn't even taste that much.
Well, you just get used to it, though, don't you?
You do.
Yeah, preference.
Maybe that's
like
a taste bud
mushrooms.
change.
Lots of people don't like mushrooms as kids, and then you just grow into it. Same thing happens with like beer. Alcohol's one of them. As a kid, it's rank. It's gross.
So maybe if you like
and you build a
give people liver in that transitional period.
That's what I'm saying, to integrate it into this mincemeat may be a way to wean yourself onto liver, basically.
I like the idea.
I mean, the capsule thing, that was kind of just like to get the nutrients in there, basically.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I didn't mean to actually slate you. It's a good idea.
Dry it out or something, and then basically my plan is to put it in like a low oven, dry it out, and then blitz it, just blend it until it's into a fine powder. Sick. And then screw buying capsules or whatever. Just take like a teaspoon with hot water or something.
You're not even gonna get a little cut. Come on, just do it properly.
I'm not a pharmacy. It's only for me.
I'll get you
I've
the
got
capsules.
no one to please.
I'll get you the capsules.
Hot on the little like
the shaker thing to put it in.
Set.
Yeah. Well, my friend's got the set thing.
Shut up.
Yeah, he's a pharmacist.
Actually a pharmacist. Yeah. Carnivore though.
Yep.
I rate it.
Yep, I rate it too. Felt super focused. I did it for lunch times. I'm a cop out. I didn't do it for my whole day. So I didn't enter ketosis.
The reason why I'm more interested in it is not not for the fact that it's just meat or like the benefits of just meat. The reason I'm interested in it is because I want to know what I can integrate back. I don't see it as that carnivore is the answer. I see carnivore as the starting point for reintegrating food back into your diet. Is that I go hyper focused and hyper niche of just red meat and salt, and then I go, okay, can I handle egg? No. Okay, eggs out of the question. Can I handle...
I like this approach.
Do you know what I mean?
Isolating foods, yeah.
Now I'm reintroducing foods in and realising what I can and can't handle, basically. Like, let's try a little bit of cheese. Okay, cheese is making me real low energy or whatever. Okay, maybe there's a lactose intolerance that's quite acute and that I just didn't know about. Okay, we're going to avoid dairy for the time being. So we've got red meat, salt. What else can we put in there? Yeah. Can we try other meats? Let's try lamb. Can we do lamb?
Lamb.
Sure.
Love a bit of lamb.
We're on lamb and beef now.
Oof.
Can we integrate chicken? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, potatoes. Go through them. Go through the list.
Because there is no reason to live that stringent on yourself. Yeah. It's also not very sustainable either, in my opinion anyway.
Personally, I found that having just meat for lunches was pretty sustainable.
It does feel fantastic.
Yeah.
Like today I'm on chicken thighs.
Yeah.
And then tonight I'll be on chicken thighs or drumsticks or something else. Yeah. So I'm just on meat today. And I feel great.
Yeah. I mean, my farts stank.
The protein issue. Yeah. Yep. Toilet problems.
Other than that, it was great.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like, although it's great, you're drawing back to then hopefully pull some things back into your life.
Yeah, I like that.
And that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be that. I like food.
It's
amazing. I want to pull other things in there. I want it to still be an enjoyable process.
A little cheesecake sometimes.
I want to sort of live to eat, not just eat to live. Eat to live. Well,
in my mind, it's control. Like, I want to be able to control my life and not be dictated by a diet.
Yeah. So whereas like Jordan Peterson and his daughter Michaela are like hauling around an air fryer on planes. Like, this is true. This is what Michaela Peterson said. Is that she takes an air fryer whenever they go abroad and vacuum packed meat. It's like, no, that's not the life I'm about. And they have unlimited wealth. Yeah. Like, start reintegrating things back in. Yeah. Whatever. There is no need to take an air fryer everywhere. Like, the desperation to function as a human being, to take an air fryer onto an aeroplane and vacuum pack meat, that's no longer... That defeats the purpose of what you initially...
That's so silly,
you know what I mean?
yeah. Imagine going on holiday. Yeah. Oh, yeah, got your list. don't vacuum seal meat. What?
It defeats the purpose of the carnivore diet to me personally.
So silly.
Is that shouldn't be...
Yeah, it's allowing you to function at a higher rate. It's not controlling your life.
Yeah. And so my process is that I'll be able to get to that stage and then start to reintegrate slowly back into normal things, and then I can figure out what's like triggering basically.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, Will. Wish you all the best of luck with that.
Thank you very much.